I watched a an interview with I've forgotten what her name is now. It might have been Lady Arbuthnot. You know, who is the head judge in the UK? The head judge, is it Lady Arbuthnot, or is
No,
she
I
just the
know.
head of the chief
It,
magistrate?
oh, I can't.
Anyway, it was an
I
interview.
know who. I
You might remember it was an interview on the BBC last year, and she
Lady
was
Hale.
retiring. Sorry.
Lady Hale. Is it
Lady
Lady
Hale,
Hale?
you know what I'm talking about, and she was
Yeah.
saying that the problem that the courts have got at the moment, they've got a massive problem in that they are witnessing the decay of society, and the majority of cases that they are brought before the courts are not a criminal case. They are either a mental health case or they're a social issue. That's what they're dealing with the majority of the time. And do you? Here's the thing. We've been thinking about this. We've been talking about it, and I actually think that there's a way that we can all help change this, and there's a way forward because, like you said earlier, they're our laws. So why don't our courts, much the same as our police force, by the way, have civilian oversight rather than you know like in the police force, for instance, they have internal affairs, and there's always accusations that cops look after cops, and see a lot of that in America. Not so much over here, but I'm sure it happens. I know, my fiance used to go out with a cop, and she's told stories of how he'd come home and his stuff has been nicked out of his locker. Yeah, the police locker been
Yeah.
nicked. The police stealing from the police. She's told stories of how she's gone out with him on a night out with him and his colleagues, and she's gone into the toilet, and his female colleagues, police officers, are snorting coke in the club, and then the
Yeah.
next day they're arresting people for a 10 bag of weed.
Mm.
The so it does happen in this country, and I think it's a moral hazard again, isn't it? If police officers can get away with this behaviour once or twice, they can do it with impunity then, and it becomes second nature to them, and then you've got a systemic problem. Well, with civilian oversight, surely that's going to be you could look at it like jury service in a way. And especially looking at the future, we're going to have a massive problem with jobs in this country by the look of it. Surely we can say, well, here's a I don't know 16-week period. You've got your call up for the next 5 years. You've got to do 3 months on, and you're going to look at cases of police brutality, or you're going to look at cases of
Yeah.
the courts, etc. And
Yeah.
you're really going to educate not just the public then on what the police have to go through on a daily basis, because let's face it, it's a fucking hard job, and I wouldn't want to do it. But you're also going to maybe any bad police, you're going to weed them out of the system straight away, because they're going to be like, well, if there's oversight from civilians, I can't get away with my crap anymore. I've got to go back to being a punk again, or whatever, you see my point.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a better way forward doing that than just, I mean, leaving it the way it is or expecting them to reform themselves. It's just
No.
not going to happen, is it?
I mean, I agree. I've thought of that myself actually with things like public inquiries. Should be people led, should be, led by a community of people. Maybe they decide which lawyers they want, which judge they might want, but they decide, and they do they do the groundwork and they do the decision making. I mean, it just seems crazy to that it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. We know that you can have judges in to carry out public inquiries. It does never lead to satisfaction
No.
anyway. All reports get hidden, they get sat on, or they get lost. We've seen that, haven't we, with some of Theresa May's reports
Yeah.
she sat on. Um, but it's just that something has to give. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore. I mean, the courts. It's the courts. It's the prison system as well. I mean, the whole what's happened to Julian Assange has exposed every area really where it's corrupt, where
Hmm.
it's weak, where it's compromised. I mean, the fact that uh, he was in the health ward uh, for several months.
Yeah.
That just wasn't an issue for Belmarsh Prison. That's the actual care and health of all prisoners is a collaborative. It's national. It's the NHS England. It's a number. It's a number of various different organisations that together um, are responsible for the health
Yeah.
of every individual prisoner. It's not just Belmarsh Prison. So they're all to be held account. So why are they not all? It shows state sponsored. Everyone's either too scared or too compromised. But how can you go into a category A prison and you've done nothing? You've not committed a crime and you're not wanted for any violent crime, and you could stay in that category A prison indefinitely. How can that be unacceptable? And then for several months of that, you go into one room and you're not allowed to see anybody else. And the person who's done that to you doesn't have to be accountable. It doesn't have to say even why.
Not only that, but if you imagine, like, um, on Julian, he's been in arbitrary detention for 7 years. Those are the words of the United Nations, not me.
Mm.
Been in arbitrary detention for 7 years. He was dragged out in what John White calls an act of fascism from his detention after, the IMF promised to give Ecuador a load of loans and injection, of which then months later the people rose up and said we're not going to accept this, and they had to back down, and they even changed the capital of their country at one stage because they were chasing after the horrific guy who took over. So they dragged him out in an act of in an act of fascism, and then he's been thrown into Belmarsh. He hasn't, in his letter to me, I remember him saying that he's got 20 minutes or 30 minutes a day exercise. He's got just 20 minutes a day to try and get a phone call. He has to wait in line for other people. He's got no access, or he had no access to a library or anything like that. He could only get one book from at a time. He had no access to internet and no access to his lawyers,
Well,
no
exactly.
access to
Yeah.
his defence of any kind.
No.
And on the other side, you've got the most powerful country in the world. A nuclear armed juggernaut of a superpower with lawyers up the wazoo, a decade for them to prepare. How is that fair? How is it fair that they get a decade to prepare? Remember, they sealed this indictment back in, was it 2010? So they knew they were after him with this indictment, and it was Barack Obama who went
Yeah.
after him with this indictment, that they finally got him
Yeah.
using the Espionage Act, a 1917 law from America that was used to imprison conscientious objectors, if I remember right. They've had all of that. 10 years, millions and millions of dollars of attorneys and lawyers going after him, trying to say, we'll paint him as he's been painted in that time and smeared and slandered in the media as a rapist. A rapist. The worst kind of slander. I spoke to a lady who was the Lisa Longstaff. I'm not sure whether you're aware of her. She's the spokeswoman for Women Against
Yes.
Rape.
Yeah,
And
no.
I saw a couple of Free the Truth events last year, and I remember speaking to her, and she said in her speech that, whilst our country has been pursuing this case of non-rape for a decade, so it's something that she says is an insult to real victims of rape. It's no diminishing what those women's accusations at all, but this is not. And while they've been going after him for a decade on this ridiculous charge of rape and smearing him as a rapist when there's no evidence to actually back that up whatsoever, other than a broken condom with no DNA whatsoever on. Strange.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, real rapists in this country, they're not pursuing. They're letting those go. And she just listed off a list of people who like horrific rapists, horrific, that they didn't pursue in this country because of lack of evidence or what have you. Meanwhile, they're pursuing Julian Assange like this. It's absolutely disgusting, and it makes me honestly ashamed to be British that our law system, that the Magna Carta comes from our goddamn country. We are basically the basis for all law in the West, and we're treating a journalist like this for what? What crime did he do? Oh yeah, he published the truth that proved lying war criminals were all lying war criminals.
Yeah, and I mean, what's disgusting as well is our MPs, the politicians, they've all lined up to just, well, they're all who's recognised, who's actually
Chris Williamson.
yeah, and
Look what happened
just
to him.
a handful, and the rest are quite happy to play along with this weaponising of sexual violence. Even the ones that, the feminists and the Labour Party, the ones that are quite happy to go along with weaponising sexual violence, which is what they have basically have done by promoting. By promoting the whole.
You're right. It's the weaponisation of rape.
Yeah.
It's the weaponisation of rape, and it's the weaponisation of sexual assault.
I mean, if I was one of their, if I wanted justice for women, I would be saying, listen, I want clarity from the CPS. I want clarity from the Swedish prosecutors. What were they doing for 6 years? Yeah. Why wasn't Marianne Nye? What were they doing? Why was there a delay?
Then there's Keir Starmer's involvement in all this as well. He was the head of the CPS at the time, wasn't he, Keir Starmer? And he was the one who signed the. He delayed it, didn't he? He delayed something very early on that kept the case going. I can't quite remember. Do you remember what that was, Nia?
What, Starmer?
Keir Starmer, yeah. He was the head of the CPS at the time, and he delayed something with the case that basically delayed first of all, it delayed the people who were making the accusations. It delayed any chance of them getting what they wanted, and also it made sure that Julian Assange was kept here in sort of isolation. And
I think there were other. I know some of the emails that.
When the emails saying "Don't you back out now" or "Don't you get cold feet now," that sort of thing to the Swedish prosecutors. Niels Meltzer calls it the collective persecution, the collective ganging up by 4 states against a journalist. That's exactly what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. So where is this? Where is the demand by, the liberal establishment, by the feminists, to analyse? To look at the behaviour of the CPS, to hold CPS to account. If they stopped if there was an investigation, why would your prosecuting services prevent it? Why would they stall it? So if you're going to claim that you want, you want the truth for women who, or anyone who's accused, makes allegations. You would expect a thorough, aggressive, professional prosecuting service, wouldn't you? To be held accountable.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want years of mysterious silence.
No, you wouldn't.
With these strange kind of irregularities. It's.
You know what it makes me think? You know what it makes me ask? It makes me ask this, Nina. It makes me think. Why is it? What has the United States got on us? What power do they wield over us if we are willing to basically throw the rule of law out of the window to hand a journalist over to them? A journalist who's never committed a crime in this country. Not,
It's amazing.
the
The amount,
crime of jumping bail. Well, he
yeah,
wasn't jumping bail. He was escaping.
yeah,
He was escaping his extradition to the United States, which is exactly what would have happened um, had he not
yeah.
sought asylum.
It's
And we know
absolutely,
that because the signed extradition, which he said was there, which
the amount of resources, state resources that have gone into this are absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable.
it makes you wonder what have they got on us? Why are we jumping through hoops for America? Why? It wasn't. I'm 46. I've just been turned 46, Nina. I remember growing up, the IRA and the Troubles, and I remember it was quite well known that the funding for the IRA and the other side of the IRA was from America. And I know that we begged America to stop the flow of money into the IRA, and they fucking refused for decades. So I'm wondering, this special relationship, which by the way, I watch a lot of media in the United States. I watch a lot of it, and it's only in the UK that we call it a special relationship. They never refer to it as a special relationship over in America with the United Kingdom. They just don't. It's only one side that calls it a special relationship. It just makes me wonder, what have they got on us? What is it that they've got on us that makes us that makes us throw the rule of law out the window? That literally just makes us, we might as well be tearing the Magna Carta up. So what have they got on us?
What sort of state secrets?
What is it? Well, Epstein. That's what I go to straight away. Really, Epstein. He had a lot of UK MPs in his
Right.
little black book, didn't
Yeah.
he? He had 14 ways of contacting Peter Mandelson. And Tony Blair was in his little black book. And this wasn't a little black book of, like a diary like you and I would have with Nina and her number. No. This is powerful people all around the world that he had. So
Yeah.
why has he got, and obviously we know all about Prince Andrew and the royal family, etc. What have the Americans got on us? And if he was a honey trap, what is this? Why? This is what it makes me think. This is what it makes me think. It makes me think that we're in the clutches of a so-called ally that's somehow blackmailing us to do their bidding.
Yeah.
And that's what it makes me think. And I'm not the only one who thinks this. And this is why I'm so goddamn sure that America are not going to get their hands on him. Because if they do, they'll kill him.
Yeah. I mean, do you know one of the things that I find really grates me is whenever there's a terrorist, whenever there's a terrible incident, or there's a mass killing, or there's somebody who's being watched or on a list by the intelligence services in the UK, but they don't have enough money to follow them. They don't have money to watch what they're doing or to whatever.
Millions to guard Assange.
But I mean, this is what really is so screwed up that they, and the press for 3 years took photos of 50 policemen standing around the Ecuadorian embassy. They didn't bother to point out that.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Ellie, go and
No
lie
worries.
down, please. Go and lie down. Thank you. Somebody just knocked at my door. Lie down, please. I'm very sorry, Nina. Carry on.
Yeah, so all of those years, this money that was public money that was squandered, and who was it? Boris Johnson was the Lord Mayor of London then, wasn't
Yeah.
he? So he would have been quite happy to spend that money.
It's
on a
millions
bounty,
just on the
a US
policing.
bounty. And it's just so obscene. So all of that money, and then after, obviously, the police were then removed because it was too conspicuous then for public consumption to see all this money being thrown at trying to capture one person, charged with no crime, and just the huge amounts of money that now, when we have, really crazy, violent people that are very dangerous, we don't have the funds
I
to
know.
stop them.
He's in prison with terrorists. He's in that prison with terrorists. I mean, literally, the guy who killed Lee, the guy who tried to decapitate Lee Rigby in the middle of the high street, is in that prison with him. He's literally surrounded by terrorists. A
Yeah,
journalist who, a journalist of a publication that's never, ever, ever gotten anything wrong.
yeah, that's incredible, isn't it?
You think about all that
Yeah,
they've dropped.
cannot
They
be charged with, accused of fake news,
no
uh, propaganda. It's all dead straight, you
no.
know.
We are living in an age right now where everybody is accused of fake news. Everybody is accused. Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, BBC, Channel 4, me, you, 21st Century Wired, bloody Joanne. Everybody's accused from fake news. Nobody accuses WikiLeaks of fake news. Nobody at all. They've never, because they've
Because they
dropped
can't. Yeah,
over a million documents a year on average for the 15 years. That's 15 million documents or whatever it is, on pretty much every country in the world. Not a single one has been said is fake. None. That's incredible, isn't it?
It-
Isn't that's what we
yeah.
need as a media to fight the fake news?
You'd
Correct?
think, you'd think, wouldn't you?
Rapist. He must be a rapist. Yeah, this is why they call him that. This is why they smear him and slander him, and this is why they resort, obviously, to these smear and slander tactics, because they can't argue with him on the issues. They can't smear him on the issues, because if people hear the issues and hear what he stands for, then people will go, oh, I support that guy then. You know, so they have to. It's
But it shows you the power of of truth, doesn't it, as well? That
yeah,
they are absolutely terrified of someone who is will not be bought, who's not for sale. So if you have conviction, if you are prepared to find the truth and expose the truth, and you're not going to be bought, you're a real threat, and they will do whatever, um, to silence you.